Right. Welcome to Advent of Code 2022. I've already done the first 2 days off stream, but I'm ready to dive into the third day. First of all, I have to log in on this computer. Alright, I haven't looked at day 3 yet. This is going to be the first time that I see this. Also, I need to clone this repository on this computer. There we go. CD. Make sure day 2 works. And we're good. Alright. Before I even read this, I'm just going to set up my source file with a main program and a subroutine and a module. Alright, now I have folders for days 1, 2, and 3. 3 is empty. And this is going to be my source file. Start out with a module and a subroutine for part 1, and there's going to be a subroutine for part 3 later. And a main program. Throw in some start and end prints in main like I did before. And that should give me a scaffold for day 3. Let's make sure it builds and runs. Yep, that doesn't work. Forgot to end the module. Alright, that worked. So, let's actually look at the problem now. Something about elves. I don't even read most of these. I'm only on day 3. I'm kind of behind. It's December 8th. But I only started this today, so give me a break. The first few days aren't very difficult, and then they ramp up in difficulty, so day 3 still isn't particularly difficult. At least I hope it isn't. Rucksacks, compartments. There's a list of items in the rucksacks, and I have to help them. I have to help the elves find the heirs. Wait, what's the deal with compartments? Okay, 2 compartments per rucksack. This is 6 rucksacks. How is it divided into compartments? This is the first rucksack. Okay. So half the characters in a line are a compartment. So I don't know how many characters there are here, but the first half is the first compartment. So that's the first compartment. And the second compartment is the rest of that line. And the only item that appears in both compartments is lowercase p, and this is case sensitive. think part 1 should be easy enough to brute force. I'll save this input. Ooh, that's embarrassing. Okay, input.txt. So I have that input here now, and I want this test as well. Okay, I thought I copied that. I guess not. There we go. Is there a trailing new line here, and does that matter? Okay, no trailing new line, so that's my input. Let's read the file. That's going to be part 1. I did this for days 1 and 2 already, opening and reading files in Fortran, but I'll start this from scratch since I did parts 1 and 2 off screen. I need a name for the input file, so that's going to be a global variable in my module. F input is the name of the input file. I'm going to set that in main. It's a global variable in the module, so that's how it's going to get passed to the subroutine. So we'll assign that as either input.txt or test input.txt. When I'm ready to do the real input, I'll comment this out, but for now I'll just work on the test since it's smaller, and that's going to be easier to work with. Now from the main program, I have to call my subroutine. And then I'm going to do all the work of opening and reading the file inside the subroutine. So you have to open the name of the file, assign a handle, and it's an old file, so it better exist. If it doesn't exist, Fortran will throw an error. And then I have to close everything that I opened based on the handle. This handle is an integer. That's just the way Fortran is. So I hope that should still compile. It doesn't. Because cannot convert character. I have to use the module. I have to use the module in main. I made this exact same mistake on days 1 and 2, and now that I'm doing day 3, I've made that mistake again. So that's programming for you. Alright, I opened and closed the file, and I have to read it while it's open. So let's just read one line for now. Read the handle, read text from the file, and check the status. And I'm going to read that into a string s. String has to be fixed length. Let me take a look at this input to figure out how long my fixed length string has to be. It's only 300 lines. And it looks like this line is 48 characters long. I think 64 should be safe, but I'm going to go with 256 just to go crazy. Because that's what I did for days 1 and 2, and why not? Memory is cheap. So the strings in Fortran are called characters. Is going to be 256 characters long. That's how you set the length of a string in its declaration of Fortran. So read it, print it to prove that I read it, and trim off the extra white space from those 256 characters when only less than 50 of them are used. So let's check that. And that is the first line, so that worked. Alright, now I need to put this in a loop that reads the whole file until the end of a file. So I'll use a do loop for that. And it's just going to be an infinite loop and will break when we hit the end of the file. Come on, man. I need to figure out my tab stop in this text editor. I have it working just fine on one of my other computers, but here I have to hit tab twice. I know what it is. The tab stop is 2 instead of 4. So we read it, and when it's the end of the file, which we get from this standard Fortran module, we exit the loop. So that should loop until the end of the file and print every line, and it does. Is that the last line? Yeah, that's the last line. Okay. Now we have to divide each rucksack into 2 compartments. I'm going to do this brute force. To do this efficiently, you would sort the first half and sort the second half alphabetically or by whatever ordering convention you want to use, and then you would step through each compartment in parallel to find the item that appears in both compartments. And you would do that efficiently if you sort both of them. But I'm going to brute force this, and have a nested for loop that loops through every part of the second component and every part of the first component as pairs. So that's a lot more complex than if you step through both sequences in parallel, but these are only 40 characters long, so unless they throw something crazy at me in part 2, brute force is going to be good enough, and we won't need to worry about sorting and doing things efficiently. So that's the plan. Now I have to divide these compartments into 2 halves. So I need the number of characters in the rucksack, and then I'll divide that by 2 to get the number of characters in each compartment of the rucksack. So n is going to be the size of the rucksack, and n2 is going to be n divided by 2. So that is len trim of s in Fortran. And that should tell me how many characters are in each rucksack. So that's it. And then n2 is n divided by 2. Yeah, it's fine. There are lots of ways you could do this, but I'm going to use 2 separate variables for n and n2. And now compartment 1, I'll call that C1. Again, I'll make it 256 just to be safe, even though it better be half or less of S, so we could make this 128 characters. But memory is cheap, so stock up. These are going to be the 2 compartments, and that's going to be the substring. Substrings in Fortran are so easy. It's just like arrays in Fortran, and it's maybe I just don't know C, but like to get a substring in C is a pain in the ass. In Fortran, it's just 1 through n2. Is that right? Am I off by 1? We'll see. I think that is right. Should be even. Yeah, this is right. I'm pretty sure. And then the second substring is n2 plus 1 through n. Let me get this aligned. Okay. verify that I split that correctly. I'm gonna split this here and then pass it into another subroutine that finds the common characters. You could do this all in one subroutine, it really doesn't matter. So, yep, they're both the same length. And does this match what they told me? V through R, V through R, H through P, H through P. Looks good to me. Okay. Now let's make a subroutine that finds the common items. What the hell, let's call it A and B in here instead of C1 and C2. If you're curious about Fortran, this is how local arguments work in functions. It's the same as C. There's nothing special about Fortran, but I'm gonna pass C1 and C2 to the dummy arguments A and B, and that's how the subroutine is gonna work. So these are characters, and now these characters, part 1 owns the compartment strings, C1 and C2, so these have to be fixed length. Or, oh, you know what, better yet, these can be allocatable length because S is the buffer that has some hard-coded maximum size. C1 and C2, these can be allocatable, just like I did for the input file name string. And then I'm no longer hard coding the lengths. And then that should still be okay. And then here, since they'll already be trimmed when I assign them here, I don't need to trim in the print statement because they're only going to be as long as they need to be. I hope this works in G Fortran. I use Intel Fortran primarily at work, and it doesn't like something here. There are some differences between Fortran compilers, but I try to keep things standard. Right, the trailing comma. That's no bueno. What did I do? Yeah, okay, so now for a subroutine which gets a string passed to it, you do len equals star instead of len equals colon. Because whatever calls the get shared item subroutine owns A and B, and then these dummy arguments. I think the terminology for this in Fortran is assumed length. When you have an argument to a function, the length is an asterisk. Okay, that worked. And it didn't crash, it still has this thing at the end. If I don't see this line at the end, I know I crashed somewhere. And I can show you my build script. My build script uses all the warnings for G Fortran. Yeah, I don't have bounds checking. I can't remember if there is a G Fortran option for bounds checking. This is, yeah, I'm wondering if this is already included in W all or W extra, but I don't think it is. F bounds check. Is that right? Is it going to complain about the way that I typed that? I think we're good. It's warning me about the arguments that I'm not using. Let's print them just so it doesn't warn me about that. I need some kind of delimiter in here. Let's put a pipe. Because this character set, it's A through Z, lowercase and uppercase, so pipe is just fine to show as a delimiter. What, did that not build? I never called the subroutine. Okay, I'm going to get rid of some of these prints because I think this is safe. And this subroutine needs to have some sort of output argument or a return value. But yeah, these are getting passed correctly, it looks like. So that's passing strings as arguments in Fortran. Now I just need to implement this subroutine, and let me put some separators in here too, because this is my style. This is my style for Fortran. I like a bunch of stuff, like a bunch of junk comments, just to separate every subroutine and program and module in my source code. I like it for readability. Some people might say this is stupid. In languages like C, you have curly braces, and then you can use your text editor to jump from brace to brace. Can't do that in Fortran because there aren't any curly braces, so I just use this commented thing because that's my style. Okay, so I don't feel as bad looking at this now. Now I need to implement this subroutine, and like I said, I'm just going to brute force it. I'll loop through everything. I could add some checking inside this subroutine that n1 or the length of A is the same as the length of B, but this is throwaway code that I'm writing for Advent of Code, so I'm going to be lazy and I'm not going to implement that. And I'll just assume that they are the same size. And I'll call it n in here, which is different from n in here. It's actually going to be n2. But it's a local variable, so don't get confused. You've been warned. You could use just len, because I know I've already trimmed them, but I'll use len trim just to be safe. And then loop. Jesus. In Fortran, it's not a for loop, it's still a do loop. This is like an unconditional loop. This is going to be a standard iteration through a range of integers. It's I equals 1 through n. It's going to be really embarrassing if I got that syntax wrong, because I'm writing this from scratch. I'm not copying and pasting something else. And then the substring, a range of substring, you use colons. For a single character substring, you just use one index. So I'll print both of them. Why not? I hope that works. Nope. I don't have an integer. Why is this not warning me that I didn't declare I? It is warning me, but it put the other error first. Thanks, G Fortran. You're as bad as Terry Davis's Holy C compiler. Now what's wrong? What's wrong with the module? The subroutine is what's wrong with the module, because the subroutine is part of the module. Did I mess up this do loop? Is it? Was I wrong about what I just said for a single character substring? Okay, Jesus, that was it. Okay, single character substring, it's not this. For like a vector of numbers, that's how you get one thing out of a vector. But character substrings are different in Fortran, and I forgot about that just now. So V and H are the first characters of A and B, so VH, the second character of both, is JC. That looks good. The last is R and P. Yeah, I think this looks good. But these aren't the things that I want to compare. I'm stepping through both in parallel. That would work if they were sorted. And then you have to step through one or the other. You can't step through both at the same time. But I'm going to brute force this and loop through both. Yeah, I'll just get rid of that print statement because it's not really doing me any good. Yeah, I need to loop through everything. I can't like loop through j equals 1 to I. I have to go through n and everything because they're not sorted. If they were sorted, you could cut this in half and you, well, can you? I don't know, never mind. But I'm doing this the brute force way anyway, so it's inefficient. This is order of n squared. If they were sorted, you could do this on the order of n space or time complexity. Not space complexity. Who knows what the space complexity is? Also n, right? Because you just have two strings. Okay. So if they're the same, I need to return this somehow. I really named these arguments poorly because what am I going to name this output argument? C? Then it looks like A, B, and C are all inputs, but who cares? I'm writing this for myself. You just happen to be watching. So, viewer, you have been warned. Do a better job of naming things than I'm doing here. This is just throwaway code. I'm not going to waste time overthinking it. So if they're the same, we're going to set this output argument. And we want to do multiple things in here. What am I doing? Why am I editing text like this? So set that and then return. Because we can break out of the subroutine as soon as we find the first shared item, because I think it said in here, the two compartments can only have one shared item. So you don't need to worry about the case where the compartments share multiple items, at least not for part 1. Maybe they'll throw that at us in part 2. So as soon as we find a match, we can exit the double loop and exit the subroutine. What kind of character? This is just going to be a scalar character. It's not going to be a string. In Fortran, character is a character, and a character with some length is a string. Basically, a character is like a vector, or a string is like a vector of characters in Fortran. There's no Unicode. It's ASCII, so every character is the same size. Everything is 1 byte. And then this has 3 arguments, so I need to call it with 3 arguments now. And we'll print the shared item. Hopefully that works. It did not. Right. Because I did a really weird job of editing that line of code. By the way, in Fortran, you get these errors that J was undeclared because I'm using implicit none. If you leave out this line, I think this compiles just fine, but it gives you garbage and it in fact crashes when you run, so that's why you always have to use implicit none so that the compiler can check that you've declared all of your variables and you don't have any typos, like writing C3 instead of C2 when I don't have a C3. So use implicit none in Fortran. What did I do that time? It's it's actually crashing. Yeah, it's not that kind of character. It's a scalar character, it's not a string. Should I demonstrate this? Yeah, let me demonstrate that again. I think it's going to be an integer anyway. I'm not sure what the default implicit declaration rule is. Yeah, it works because J automatically gets declared as an integer even though I didn't explicitly declare it as an integer. But that's really dangerous, especially when you need a real number or a character or something that's not an integer. So, are these right? P, L, P, P, L, P, V, T, S, V, T, S. It's all Gucci, man. It's all Gucci. Might as well keep that. What is the sum of the okay, now I need to get the priorities from these. Before I implemented this, I was thinking about actually sorting things, and then I would have sorted them by the priority. Or I can't remember if you can just compare characters in Fortran. I think you can just use the less than sign with characters. If not, you might have to assign priorities so that you can sort them as integers instead of as characters. But we need to do that to get the answer for the advent of code. So I'll make that a function instead of a subroutine. The priority of a character. And this is going to return an integer. So this is how you set the return value in Fortran. You just put the type before the function. And then, yeah, can I compare characters in Fortran? I hope so, because I'm gonna do it like this. Or equal. And I hope I can also do arithmetic on ASCII like this, and +1, because if C is A, then A minus A is 0, but I have to make A priority 1, so we add 1. And then basically, yeah, no checking. This is just an unconditional else. And if you pass in like a number or a symbol to this function, you're going to get some random return value. And let's print that too. I hope that works. Yeah, the way you do return values in Fortran is it's the name of the function. Like, come on, that's terrible. Why are you like this, Fortran? You can set something else, but the default way that Fortran works is the return value is the name of the function. If you wanted it to be something else, you would say like result X, and then I would assign X here instead. But I'll just live with the default. It's simpler this way. And both of these are early returns. I hope that works. No. Yeah. Okay. Can I cast this to integer? Wait, that's not how you cast in Fortran. There we go. Thank God for syntax highlighting. I only knew because of the color. Freaking A. Is it? Come on, man. I do not want to have an if-else statement 26 lines long. Oh. Yeah, there is a function for this. I just can't remember the name of it. IA car. Returns the code of the ASCII character. Yeah, I think that's what I want. Return value integer. Yeah, this is what I want. Search and replace. Boom. There we go. I hope that's right. 1638. God damn it, man. It's... Do I have to... This is so annoying. Is this what I have to do? I should really like save these in local variables just to save myself from typing IA car so many times. But like, is this what I'm missing? 1612. No, what the fuck? Okay, this is going to be a recursive print. Is this going to be okay? Because I'm printing inside the function, and then I'm also calling the function in a print statement, so I'm not sure if this is going to work. Yeah, that doesn't work. So I have to set it to a temporary variable. It knows it's up. Yeah. I have to add 27. So I think this was fine. First of all, let me fix it and then let me get rid of all these IA car calls. Because, yeah, so this should be basically 27 instead of 1. I think that's what I was missing. Yeah, and that's it. 16, 38, 42, 42, 22, 20, 19. It's all Gucci. Don't think I needed these. (163842), 163842. Yeah, I did not need all that junk. Didn't really need this temporary variable either. And all I have to do is add up all the priorities. So let's call that iSum, initialize it to 0, and then add it up. In Fortran, there's no plus equals operator, so you have to do iSum equals iSum plus priority of C. It's annoying, but Fortran doesn't have that syntactic sugar that C++ and every single other language has. And I need to print my answer. That's it for the test input. Now I just need to switch to the real input. do part 2. Oh, now we have 3. Okay, so there's a lowercase r here, here, and here, and that's the only character that's in all 3 of these strings, or all 3 of these lines. Each line is 1 string. So it's basically the same problem, except the strings are longer, and now we have 3 of them instead of 2 of them. Again, they're only like 50 characters long, so I think I can still brute force this, because it's going to be on the order of 50 times 50 times 50, and it's really not a lot. Let's check that in my desktop calculator. Come on, Scilab. It's going to take that many loop iterations to do, which is really not a big number. So I think I can still brute force this. And that's going to be in every 3 elf group. So again, I'm going to work on the test input first, and then I'll work on the big input, which is 300 lines or whatever. So I'm going to copy and paste this and do part 2 instead of part 1. I think I'm finally ready to comment this out because I don't want it to dump so much stuff in the console. Okay, and I didn't edit part 2 yet, so it's just saying the same thing as part 1. Now I need to read 3 strings. So, just trying to think if there's a clever way to use allocatable length strings, but I'm not splitting the line in half. I'm just, oh, okay, so in this one, n is the same for part 2. Each n is different because each line is a different length. That's fine. I just need to remember that. Almost edited part 1 there, but part 2 is the one that I want to edit. So I think I'm just going to make everything fixed length. There's not really any easy solution that's better than that. What you would do is use like a really long buffer length and just have one of them, and then read that into the temporary buffer, and then trim it down to whatever string length you have. But you still have a hard-coded buffer length somewhere, unless you read the line 1 character at a time, which really takes a lot more code to implement. So I'll do this the quick and dirty way. And now we're going to read 3 lines. And it better not exit until the 3rd one. You should put these in between every read, but I'll just do 1 at the end. What do they call this? The badge? So naming things is hard. I'm just gonna call this this subroutine get badge instead of get shared item, because again it's a shared item between 3 different things, but I need to name it something else so that my function names don't clash. Excuse me. So get badge is going to be like get shared item, except there's going to be a 3rd argument. I really named these things poorly. Badge. It's the badge. So, okay, yeah, this subroutine, it has a terrible output argument name. This one is a little bit better. Modify the types. I need an other loop index because these are all different lengths. Yeah, I'm going to trim it. I'm going to pass the full 256 characters into the function, and then I'm going to perform the trimming inside of the function. And then my 3rd loop is that. Add an extra level of indentation. Not like that. I gotta fix my tab stuff. And then end the loop. And I have to compare 3 things now. That needs to match. So I think that should get me the badge, which was fairly easy if I did that right. Let's see. And then, like, getting the priority, that's already implemented. That's wrong. Yeah. What? Those don't exist. What did I name it? Badge. That's not right. It's something about just reading them is wrong. Did I read past the end? Let's just do the first 3. That seems okay. How did this get into an infinite loop? I think only the first one matters. And then, so apparently in Fortran, after you read past the end of a file, the IO status, if you try to read again, is no longer IOStat end. Like, what the fuck, Fortran? Why does it work like that? It's some other error code. And I think I really only need that first one, but I don't like the way that code looks, so I'm gonna leave these in here because it's a little more foolproof. Ideally, you should check some condition for some weird case where you have a number of lines that's not a multiple of 3. But I'm gonna assume that these inputs are valid, so I'm not going to bother writing code to check that condition. Let's get the badge. What the hell is this doing? That was the real input. That wasn't the test input. There we go. That's better. It's been a long day. I worked today. And then I'm taking Friday off of work. So it's kind of like the start of a long weekend. But it's like 11 p.m. here, and I'm writing code. I usually don't code this late because it messes with my sleep. But I think I could do like one more advent of code this late, and it wouldn't be a huge problem. And I still think I can. So I have to like get the priority. But the badge is an empty string. That's not good. It should be a bunch of stuff. And the last one, those lengths aren't correct. Wait, M? What is the first badge? First badge is R. Three. K. Oh my god. Set the return value. Pro tip, set the return value before you return from a function. Oh, this is the final one. So, was that the only mistake I made? R, Z. Okay, yeah, we have two groups. So the badge for the first group is R, and the badge for the second and final group is Z. So I think I have that right. And then we have to add up the priorities, which is in part 2. Come on, man. I really did a poor job of naming that variable. 70, that's the sum. I think that's it. Just need to do the actual input. Bunch of badges. I'll clean that up later, but I think this is the answer. Get in. Alright. I'm just going to commit this, and then I think that's all that I'm going to do. I just need to ignore main.exe as opposed to main, which you get on Unix-like operating systems. That's not what I wanted to do. Changed the build script a little bit. All I did was add the bounds check option. And that should be day 3. Let's make sure I committed that. There it is. Alright, that's it for day 3. I still have a lot of catching up to do. It's December 8th. I only just did the first 3 days today. Maybe I could do like another 3 days or something tomorrow, but I doubt that I'm going to finish this, and I seriously doubt that I'm going to record myself doing every one of them on video. So maybe you'll see a couple more videos, maybe not. But that's it for today. I'll catch you next time.